So far, 2021 has been pretty, but a new year means new anime. I'm going to be trying to watch more than I have time for, which is the same thing I did last season. On the plus side, now you can binge watch the entirety of last season's shows while you're busy not doing things in public. So, with the help of a friend, I have some feelings on fall 2020's content. I've been considering ways to add context to my thoughts on the shows that I've been watching, especially considering that these aren't reviews, they're just things that I've watched that I have feelings on. That said, I'm going to try to get through this whole video without getting DMCA'd. Admittedly, I've been kind of distracted this season. I've been focusing a lot of my time on,
For I can't help falling in love with what's it called?
Wingless? The famous vegetables?
But what kind of vegetable?
Bacon?
Bacon is not a vegetable. No.
Bacon is kind of a pig vegetable.
Okay.
トマトないね。これ。あ、サンキュー。外に行っちゃダメなんだよ。密ですよ。密。家にいなさい。Stay home.
classes and stuff. Remember when we used to play sports? This is a story about how a mobile puzzle gamer girl picks up rock climbing on a whim and becomes a spider girl in like 3 weeks in a montage. It's an interesting introduction to the sport, but the show falls a little flat when it tries to play up the stresses of competition and failure because the characters are pretty one-dimensional, including the main cast. It's no Haikyuu.
We wrapped up the second half of Haikyuu's fourth season in a pretty typical fashion, a focus on a single match, but this time broken up by a secondary match from rivals Nekoma that kept the pacing fresh. This time it was Karasuno versus second seed Inarizaki, led by the famous Mia twins. Haikyuu continues to deliver on story, acting, and soundtrack. You could maybe argue that the animation quality dipped a tiny bit this season, but the art styles leaned way harder into the manga's art style, and most of this criticism can be hand-waved away by the absolute Sakuga moments peppered throughout. As is tradition at this point, most of the main cast got their hero moments, but the real stars in my opinion are Tanaka and our boy Hinata. The latter of the two finally gave us payoff from those early episodes this season, leading to two of my absolute favorite moments from the entire series. Only real downside is having to wait for season 5 and the fated Battle of the Garbage Dump.
I had been hipster following this project since it was a web novel, so of course I was simultaneously thrilled and immediately apprehensive when I heard they got an anime adaptation. The execution feels a little shaky, largely because it sprints through the source material. There's a lot of world building that gets left out that would have helped you care about the side characters if it had felt like this was going to be more than a one-season run. This is no Spice and Wolf, but the ingredients for those pizzas aren't going to source and import themselves. This is another show that hits well for kids because when the townsfolk are all like, haha, is that a bear? Every single episode, the kids are going to be like, haha, they think she looks like a bear. Every single time. Every time. I think you probably know already if you'd enjoy Kimono Mimi magic girls with airplanes on their legs who dogfight alien robots, but this is this series. Given some choice camera work, Freaking Lewd is one of the first descriptors I'd use for this series, but the underlying story and the interactions between the characters are actually pretty wholesome. In between the boobs, the witches are actually trying to take back Berlin, and it's personal for those of them that have lost their homes during the war. This is pretty much slice of life with stuff blowing up, and it's not a bad idea to start from the beginning of the series if this looks interesting to you. Oh yeah, and Patton's back. So, the demons captured the human princess and trapped her in the tower of their castle, but unbeknownst to them, she's actually the worst person in the entire kingdom. She just can't get a good night's sleep in her cell, but that doesn't bode well for the demons that are made out of literal silk sheets, or the harpy that's made out of literal comforter material. This shows a good primer on Stockholm Syndrome, but they're stuck in there with her. She's the terrorist. Despite her being a sociopath, Rip Shroud demons, this is kid appropriate and has lulls for all ages. The premise of this season of Danmachi is that the protag Belle meets this cinnamon bun of a sentient monster named Wingless in the dungeon. Wingless wouldn't hurt a soul on purpose, but due to societal circumstances, Belle and his friends can't tell anyone about her or the phenomenon of sentient monsters. If it comes to light that they exist, everyone's prejudices will cause an outrage and maybe break society as they know it. After all, what would happen if they found out that these rare sentient monsters aren't really different from them after all? The story isn't particularly deep at face value, but it does evoke a very familiar emotional response, and those that have been following the series are waiting to see just how far Belle will go to fight for what is morally right. Racism. This season's about racism. In this show, Truck-kun doesn't isekai the male MC, he just has him get married and be hearts aflutter about interactions with the perfect wife that he stumbled upon. The interactions between these two are saccharine, and NASA is an earnest dude that has made a positive impact on a lot of people. If these two can't sleep under the same roof without their heads exploding, the only consummation of their marriage that we're going to see is in the doujinshis. I had to actively try not to talk about this one for so long that I had to find enough B-reel that Tezuka Productions would cover my head, but I want to. This starts with a young woman hanging out with a new lady friend that she met while doing truant stuff instead of going to school. The show follows both of their interactions and their internal monologues as their feelings as friends appear to change and become more complicated. It's rated number 1 for me this season because all of the interactions between the characters, spoken, nonverbal, and in monologue, feel natural, like they're between real people. They're relatable regardless of gender or orientation. It's no secret that Yagate Kimi ni Naru is one of my favorite series, and the two of these share a lot of similarities, both in writing and presentation. You can't help but ship these two, both because it seems as though it would complete them in the world built by Iruma, but because happiness should be accepted wherever it's found. Oh, and there's an astronaut.